I received a call the other day and the caller was really excited and he's like, "Have you seen these investments? They promise 100% downside protection. I can't lose any money and I can make money in the market and I can buy it through an ETF. It sounds like the holy grail of investing." I told him I have in fact heard of these products before. In fact, they're becoming wildly popular because every time the market starts getting volatile, Wall Street goes into overdrive selling these products both to financial advisors and to retail clients. There's even a name for them, and I did not make this up, boomer candy. So today I want to pull back the curtain a bit on boomer candy, what they are, how they perform, and how you could possibly build one yourself. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Now, this may sound odd coming from someone in finance, but I have a general distrust of Wall Street. When they look at you, they see a dollar sign, and they're always trying to profit off of our fear and greed. The latest craze or the latest way they are trying to make money is something called a buffered ETF. It's also called a defined outcome investment. And I get calls every week trying to convince me to sell these ETFs or these products to my clients. And the pitch sounds magical. 80 to 100% downside protection plus upside. So meaning you don't lose any money or very little money and you're able to participate in the market. Now, typically there's a cap, say 10 or 12 or 14%, but no risk and upside. If you're retired, you might be thinking, wait, zero risk and I can still make 10% in the market or 12%? What's not to love? And at first glance, it really does sound like the holy grail of investing. Upside without risk. What more could you want? Well, I ran across an article recently by Larry Swedroe, one of my favorite authors, and he dug into these buffered ETFs. He actually used a research study that I will link to in the description below. But he dug into these ETFs and he pulled back the curtain a little bit to help us understand them a bit better. And it's pretty interesting. And so, for the few nerds out there who care, here is what it looks like on the backside of a buffered ETF. Now, there are a variety of ways that these can be constructed, but they are normally something similar to this. So what you're doing when you buy a buffered ETF is you're essentially getting 95% in treasury bills and then a small call spread on the S&P 500. So here's how the strategy actually looks. So let's say you have $100 that you want to invest. The first $95 goes into T-bills. And at the time of the study, he was using T-bills, or the risk-free rate of return was paying about 5%. So you put $95 into T-bills, and after a year, the assumption is going to be that that $95 is going to grow to around $100. You put in 95 and you'll end up with about $100 at the end, which is about what you invested. Then you take the other $5, remember you have $100, so you take the other $5 and you invest it into an S&P auction call spread. Specifically, you might buy a call at, say, the $100 strike price and then sell a call at the $110 strike price. And so what you're doing is you're reducing the price of a call option on the S&P 500, but you're also limiting your upside. Now, it would take an entire video to explain call options, but just at the most basic level, very simplified. Essentially, if you buy a call option for $100 and the stock goes to $105 or the S&P goes to $105, you make money. If the stock crashes, right, the S&P goes to $90, you just lose your original investment, which in this case was $5. And what they do in these cases to reduce the price of the call option, which is the only risk you have, they sell another call option at a higher strike price. So you make profit if it falls between 100 and 110. If it goes over 110, you've limited your upside. And so after a year, here's the value of your original $100, depending on what the market does. If the market is flat or down, you made $0, but you're flat. So you risked $5, you invested $5, but you made $5 in interest from the T-bills, and so you are flat. So if the S&P 500 loses money, if it is down or if it's flat, you just basically didn't make any money. Now, if the S&P is up, if the market is up 10% or more, you are going to make a 5% gain. You're going to get back your original $5, plus you're going to make an additional $5 return. So now you've made some money. And if it lands anywhere in between, say 0 to 10%, your profit is going to be slightly less. That's how these products work. So your $100 investment ends up somewhere between $100 to $110, all depending on how the market performs. So that's it. That's the magic of buffered ETFs. Honestly, that is also the magic of most fixed index annuities. They work the exact same way. And honestly, you could build this product yourself. It is a very simple product to build. Now, the truth of the matter is it's a bit scary to purchase and buy and sell options, which is why most people don't do it. But the reality is it's a pretty simple product and you could set it up in probably 5 minutes. But here's the catch. Here's the problem. These funds often charge about 80 basis points in fees, so nearly 1%, which is a really high fee for something so simple. And it's especially high when you consider you were paying 80 basis points or almost 1% on T-bills, which are paying out very little interest. So the amount that you're actually paying on your S&P exposure is incredibly high. So the first downside to these buffered ETFs is they just have incredibly high expense ratios, and I'm not sure it's worth the expense. But there are a couple of other issues. They are often highly correlated to the S&P 500. These strategies will still move with the S&P. So even though you have downside protection, you're still really tied to the S&P. And if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that there's a lot of challenges to being too highly correlated to the S&P. In particular, we'll go through decade periods where that index is essentially flat when other areas of the market is down. Second of all, there is an opportunity cost. Since 1990, the S&P has had an annualized return of around 10.1%. But if you backtest the funds we're talking about, they've returned about 4.1% over that same time period. But even recently, I looked at one. So I just picked a fund at random that had 100% downside protection and about 10% upside. This year, or over the past year, over the past 12 months, the S&P 500 is up about 16%. This fund is up just over 7%. So yes, you did provide some downside protection. You can see that here in this chart, but you also greatly reduced your upside. So yes, they can work. As Larry said in the article, Wall Street's structured products represent financial engineering at its most profitable for Wall Street. So look, if you want downside protection, there are a number of ways that you can get downside protection, including buffered ETFs. You could find worse places to invest your money, but protection always comes at a cost. Someone else is taking risk and they want to get compensated in return for taking on that risk. That's fine. I just think these buffered ETFs cost more than they should. And in fact, you could implement this strategy on your own with very little skill if you wanted to. Now, I'm going to leave it there. I just thought this was a really interesting topic because I'm having more and more people ask me about buffered ETFs, and I'm seeing them advertised everywhere. And I'm guessing if you haven't heard of them, you're going to hear of them soon. And if you are nervous about market crashes, I have a video on why market crashes stop scaring me, and you can watch it now.